going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of The Fantasy Birds. Today we have another trade target video for you heading into week 3 of the NFL season. Last week we talked about guys like Ezekiel Elliott and Austin Eckler that we needed to be buying on our teams heading into week 2, and they ended up having pretty solid weeks. Ezekiel Elliott getting into the end zone, Austin Eckler putting up phenomenal numbers in the receiving game like we expected. In last week's episode, we talked about James Robinson being a sell. Yes, he did get a little bit more volume in that game, but still the numbers are very disappointing for where you drafted him. So hopefully you were able to get James Robinson off your team, as we still can't expect him to get back to last year's form. But let's talk about this week. We got 3 new guys that we're talking about buying in 2021 fantasy football, getting them on our teams while people are drastically undervaluing them after their 2-week performance to start the season. First guy we're going to talk about on our buy list heading into week 3 is going to be DK Metcalf for the Seattle Seahawks. Top early third-round pick, late second-round pick in almost every single draft. DK Metcalf was being drafted as a wide receiver 1, and he's not performing up to that standard so far this season. Only 11.2 fantasy points per game through 2 weeks of the season. That's got to be due to Tyler Lockett feasting with Russell Wilson. The deep ball is there. It has been there all in the first 2 games very, very nicely for that team. Can't expect these Russell Wilson to keep throwing the deep ball with that level of consistency. DK Metcalf's going to get more involved in this offense. He's still getting 16 targets through 2 games. You love that for a DK Metcalf, for a wide receiver 1. 10 catches, just not getting the yardage as the Seattle Seahawks are moving the ball in massive chunk plays that just aren't going his way yet. We know DK Metcalf is a very excellent deep route runner. He's going to get these bombs from Russell Wilson. Only 1 touchdown on the season so far. We can expect that to continue. Tyler Lockett, we saw his big games from a year ago. They did not play out over the course of the season. He has these huge volume games, and then he falls off towards the end of the year like we saw last year, not getting the volume that DK Metcalf expects to see in this offense. DK Metcalf, if anyone is worried about DK Metcalf, I am trying to get him on my team 100%. I'm not worried about DK Metcalf. He is the wide receiver 1 in Seattle. No questions asked. If anyone is worried about him, undervaluing him, go get DK Metcalf on your team. It will pay huge dividends. Next guy we're going to talk about is a guy that is extremely underperforming for where he was going in drafts. The consensus number 3 tight end going off the board in drafts. Only a tight end 12 right now as we sit before the Monday Night Football game. But George Kittle and this San Francisco offense, they have not been great this week against the Philadelphia Eagles. Very solid in week 1, got a blowout against the Detroit Lions, and then they let him back in the game. But he's been very efficient with his targets. 9 targets, 8 catches, just under 100 yards. We expect George Kittle to get a significant boost in the offense once this team starts rolling. Shanahan loves George Kittle. We know he's one of maybe the best tight end in the National Football League. On the field for every single play. George Kittle will be better than what tight end 12 by the end of the year if he stays healthy. There is no doubt about it. George Kittle is definitely a guy I'm looking to trade for, considering when you draft a tight end in the early rounds, you expect production every single week. George Kittle has not done it for the first 2 weeks. I'm loving George Kittle. If I can get him on my team for cheap, he will be better than what he's been the first 2 weeks of the season. Next guy we're going to talk about is Robert Woods for the Los Angeles Rams. Getting that new quarterback, Matthew Stafford, in town. Everyone expected Robert Woods to have an extreme breakout season for him. However, it's gone to Cooper Kupp so far. Cooper Kupp is dominating in the end zone, dominating down the field with Matthew Stafford. The chemistry is there. We've seen it. Robert Woods going ahead in Cooper Kupp in most drafts, so the Robert Woods owners are definitely going to be extremely frustrated with his production. It's been decent production, just over 10.2 fantasy points per game in half PPR league. So it hasn't been terrible production considering he got the touchdown in week 1. But aside from the touchdown in week 1, 13 targets through 2 games. Nothing crazy, but for a third-round pick, but could be a lot better. 8 receptions, definitely something we want to keep our eye on. But Robert Woods, what I want to look at, Cooper Kupp's not going to be able to sustain the level of volume he's had over the first 2 weeks. Cooper Kupp's still going to be a great wide receiver the rest of the way. I'm not saying sell Cooper Kupp. However, Robert Woods is going to get a much bigger chunk of the volume for this offense. And we got to take a look at Robert Woods' schedule over the next 5 weeks. It is absolutely amazing. You could not pick out a better schedule for Robert Woods the next 5 weeks. Start off, he's got the Buccaneers, and we know the Buccaneers are a great defense. They are excellent in run defense, but what do they struggle with? It is pass defense. The secondary needs a lot of help for that Buccaneers team. A lot of scoring from Tom Brady, coupled with a terrible secondary. You're going to get a lot of passing yards for the Los Angeles Rams. After the Buccaneers, you're looking at the Cardinals. You're looking at the Seahawks, Giants, Lions, Texans, and Titans. We're looking at all teams that want to air the ball out and cannot defend in the passing game. Robert Woods should look to get his game back going next week in prime time against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and I expect Robert Woods to be a top 12 wide receiver the rest of the way, even though he's currently sitting outside the top 20. Matthew Stafford and Robert Woods are going to get this on flow. Cooper Kupp is going to maintain value. Do not sell Cooper Kupp, but I'm getting Robert Woods if I can get him at any sort of a value compared to what he was going in the third and fourth round in drafts. Love me some Robert Woods the rest of the way. Easy pickings for Matt Stafford and this Los Angeles Rams team that is going to be very efficient for the entire season, barring some crazy injuries. Sean McVay is going to have that offense moving, and I do like the passing game with a Darrell Henderson injury, even more of a blow to that running game. They're going to need to air the ball out. Robert Woods, Cooper Kupp in line for huge workloads. But Robert Woods, you can still get him at a discount for the time being. Not going to be for long. I'm going after Robert Woods in every single league I'm in. But those are the three guys we want to target for week 3 in fantasy football. We thank you guys for watching. We'll see you next week with another episode of the Fantasy Birds.